The Chicago Bears are bringing in Asante Samuel for a visit next week, and Ryan Poles breaks down just how aggressive he was at the trade deadline looking for a defensive edge. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And Caleb Williams opens up about why the team is winning differently this year under Ben Johnson. We'll talk about all that and more on today's Chicago Bears Central.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host, Air Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And the Chicago Bears are bringing in somebody who could literally be the perfect complement for what they need for the rest of the season, as Asante Samuel Jr. is coming in for a visit next week. Now, he's not the Bears are not the only team that Asante Samuel is visiting with. I do want to be clear in that. So the Bears are going to have to make quite a pitch if they want to get him in here. He does plan on visiting the Packers, the Panthers, the Vikings, the 49ers, and the Steelers. So if the Bears are going to want to bring in Asante Samuel in here, they're going to have to make quite a pitch to get him to become a member of the Chicago Bears. And we'll see if he's able to do that. Overall, we know what Asante can be when he is fully healthy, and reportedly he is cleared and ready to get back on the football field. And so we'll see what that means for him, man. Overall, I'll say this. Asante Samuel Jr. is a guy that at 26 years old, if he's going to be healthy, can bring in a lot of exactly what the Chicago Bears need in his ability to be. He's not a huge ball hawk guy, right? So he's not a guy that's going to add to the Bears and how they get takeaways or anything like that, theoretically, but he is a guy that absolutely it can be a shutdown corner in this league when he is fully healthy. And that's the biggest question is he's cleared? How much is that health is he going to get over? Keep in mind, he only played 4 games last year in 2024. And so, he's coming back into a season where, we'll see. He only has 3 interceptions on his NFL career, but that's not why you're bringing him in here. You are not bringing him in here to all of a sudden become some ball hawk that he's never really been over the course of his career. You're bringing him in here for him to be able to help shut down a side of the field, and that's what you're hoping he's going to be able to do. Keep in mind, he only played 4 games last year because he got a spinal fusion surgery. But he was beneficially cleared for football activities earlier this week, and so now he's lining up visits. Now, after having spinal fusion, it'll be ridiculous to come in here and expect him to be exactly who he's been over the course of his NFL career. But I tell you what, just the chance of that would be such a huge acquisition for the Chicago Bears, considering how much they need help in that secondary. It would also theoretically provide everybody moving kind of back to their natural positions. You have Tyreek Stevenson, who will go back to cornerback 2, more than likely at that point. You already brought in C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who's in that slot at the nickel. And if Kyler Gordon does end up coming back before the end of the season, at that point you have now a really solid, albeit a little bit questionable cornerback core to sit there and see what you have in there. We know the injuries that the Bears have had in the secondary, right? Jaylon Johnson, Kyler Gordon, these guys are both on injury reserve. As it stands right now, Jaylon Johnson is eligible to return at any time, but he's recovering from his groin surgery, and there's been no announcement or anything made on a potential return this season. And so Samuel would be bring in somebody who at one point was an elite shutdown corner and one of the best in the NFL. Now, the Bears do face that stiff competition. Some of those teams that you look at that he already has schedules with, those are teams that are trying to win Super Bowls. The Bears right now are trying to stay ahead of things in the NFC and hopefully get a postseason appearance. But, we'll see what happens when it comes down to that. If the Bears are able to get Asante Samuel Jr. in here, I think it'll be, for a team that didn't make a trade for a corner and for where we are right now in the season, this could be a potentially really solid move by the Chicago Bears. And we'll see what he can bring when he's on the football field. And, I have no doubt that he's going to be out there and try to be exactly what he was before. Again, I don't know how much he's going to live up to that, but I do bet that he's going to be better than Nahshon Wright. I bet that, right? And anything the Bears can do to, push Nahshon Wright further down that depth chart, because I do think Nahshon Wright, for what it's worth, does offer the Bears something, right? But I think overall, like, he's just not the level of player that the Bears have tend to rely on in that secondary. And he makes some good plays. He does get some takeaways, but there's some things in coverage that he does that just are a little bad. But let me know what you guys think, man. If the Bears are able to bring in Asante Samuel Jr. to this team, are you guys excited about it, or does the injury make you a little bit more wary on exactly what type of impact he's going to be able to have for the Chicago Bears, which is a fair thing if you guys do look on it. But it's going to be a busy few weeks for him. He's not going to decide on anything quite right away, right? He's not going to decide on anything within the next week or so. He did meet with the Packers yesterday. He's going to be meeting with the Vikings on Friday. He's meeting with the 49ers on Monday, the Bears on Tuesday, and the Steelers next Wednesday. So it's going to be a process. And I would say this, the Bears do need to look at those medicals as well. I get it that we need some help in the cornerback, but the last thing you want to do is bring in somebody who's just, if the surgery and things don't have him up to speed, that's the last thing you want to do is that. But I think that I look at this as a nice shot that the Chicago Bears can take to bring in somebody that, if he is healthy, is going to tremendously help this Bears defense. And I think Dennis Allen would know the exact way to scheme it, and it could also free up to blitz some other people, some other things like that. So, we'll see. I think this could be potentially a really nice move for the Chicago Bears. We'll just see if it ends up happening. Let me know what you guys think on that down below. At the trade deadline on Tuesday, the Chicago Bears did not make the big splash move. And, I talked about the reasons why they didn't make a move and why that makes sense for where they are. Ryan Poles talked a little bit about what they were trying to do at the trade deadline, where he said this: all I can say is we made calls across the league. I checked up on all the guys that you would imagine just to see the availability. I'm going to get different answers. Sometimes they change if you start 3 weeks prior. As you get closer to things, come up and down based on how teams are doing, how they feel about the player. Sometimes they go to the player and ask them how do they see the future and go from there. We turned pretty much every stone to find those answers. And I tell you what, I'm happy with that. I'm happy that this Bears team went out and got aggressive about trying to go out there and find some guys that are going to help them with the position they need the most in. Now, I was of the mind as well, more level-headed, that I didn't expect a huge splash move. I didn't want the Bears to trade a day 1 or day 2 pick. I didn't want them to trade a pick in the first 3 rounds. I didn't want them to do that. I get why Bears fans want that. And again, I'm not trying to crap on any Bears fan for wanting to see their team make a splash. Because listen, it all comes down to, it's all rooted in, guess what? Wanting to see your team win. And I can't be mad at any Bears fan that want to see their team makes a move that's going to help them win football games. But, the patience aspect of it is the thing that I respect, because he could have went in and probably traded a second-round pick, right? But to avoid doing that and keeping those future assets, I personally see that as more controlled. I see that as being more thoughtful over how this whole process is going to have to look for the Chicago Bears. The Bears are far away right now on being anything close to a Super Bowl contender. Now, can we be a playoff contender this year? Yeah, I think that we can be, and I hope that we are going to be that. Make no mistake about that. But I do think it takes a little bit of time to be able to actually get there. And that's the thing that us as fans, we don't always have the most patience for. We don't always have the largest appetite. Is the thing that takes the longer amount of time. But I tell you what, you can get, like I said, starters in rounds 1 through 3, people that can start for you right away. Now, I understand that some Bears fans have some huge trepidation and concern over how Ryan Poles and the staff have evaluated certain draft talent so far, and I can't knock you for that one. So for some Bears fans, it's about, let's go out there and get something proven, because we don't know exactly how this draft thing is going. So it's going to go with Ryan Poles at the helm. I can give you that, right? I'm not going to act like you're crazy if that's the way that you feel. I'm not going to do that. But I think at the same time, like, despite our palate as Bears fans wanting to see this team get everything right away, like we said, not everything is going to be fixed in one offseason. Not everything it's a process to get to where you want to go. It's a process to improve as a team. It's a process to be able, to build something sustainable. So, and that's what you hope that draft picks, the hope that they bring is that because you're drafting and developing, it's more sustainable over time than trading assets and then having to pay that player that you trade for big money. All those things play into why I have that view. Again, not to knock anybody in their view, but that's why I have the view that I have in regards to the Bears not making a huge splash move at the trade deadline. So Ryan Poles made a more functional move. He made a move that was more safe in a lot of ways, and bringing in, Tryon-Shoyinka, Shoyinka, there you go, to this team. But I do think him playing behind Sweat and Austin Booker, like the thing that I'm looking at this the most is the opportunity that it really does give Austin Booker. Austin Booker has a huge opportunity here now to be able to be somebody or show, hey, I'm your starter. I am your day one starter starting off next season. Now going out and find some guys that can back us up. Maybe go out and find somebody that's young that maybe can develop and be a Montez Sweat replacement when his contract's up. Maybe do those things. But let me hold down this position. Let me show you that I'm ready to hold down this position. And Booker's going to have a lot of opportunity to do that. We'll see how successful he is in that, but he's going to have a huge opportunity to do that. And now we get to see what Austin Booker can bring, because he in the opportunity that he's been given preseason and now, he's done nothing but shown that he's grown as a player. Now, how much of that growth is going to turn into production on the football field? That's the question that we have to ask when it comes to Booker. But overall, listen, I'm perfectly fine with where we stand right now as far as the patience aspect of things. And we'll see how that all kinds of shakes out and turns around for this team as things go on. But I'm perfectly fine with waiting and being more patient. But it does put a highlight, and I do think it puts a bigger, all right, you didn't want to give up these draft picks to get somebody proven, then that means you have to hit with these draft picks. And that's the place that I'm at, and that's the place that I think is a perfectly safe place to be. If you're going to hold on to your draft picks, cool, great, that's fine. But then make sure you hit with those draft picks. We don't need to be looking back and saying, hey, listen, that second round pick, man, that ain't them. Like that probably not going to be a starter. We got to stop drafting at the top positions depth pieces. We got to find some damn starters. And so that's the pressure that now it puts on Ryan Poles with making him with holding on to your draft picks. It puts more pressure on why those draft picks actually have to turn into players that can actually start, finish, and perform for the Chicago Bears. And I think that that's the ultimate fairness in looking at all of that. And we'll see what Ryan Poles comes out with that. But let me know what you guys think on all of that down below. Now, let's get into the next one, man. Caleb Williams talks about the Bears and how they face adversity this season. He said this: that's what we are when things don't go our way. When adversity hits, we find ways to win for each other. I think that's what it's been this year. Offense not scoring, defense shows up. Defense and offense may give up a touchdown. Special teams puts us in good field position, and we kick game winners. Against Cincinnati, we had to put up a bunch of points to help our brothers, and I think us doing that today helps build confidence for those guys on the other side of the ball to let them know we have their back. And here's the thing. I know that it's something that we've talked a lot about, but the mindset of this team is different. And the thing that I keep going back to is looking at, regardless of how you look at the Bears and how they performed and stuff like that, how many of these games do you think the Bears would have lost? How many of these games do you think the Bears would have lost if Matt Eberflus was still the head coach? Things are tangible and they are real here around Chicago. And there's just no other way to look at that. Like, they are different here. Now, we got to see how much we're going to continue to grow and things go over the season. And I do think for the people that are like, all right, well, Caleb and the Bears so far have been performing really good against some of the worst teams. Listen, I'm not going to knock you for that thought process either. But I think it is a process. First, let's start consistently beating the teams that we should beat. And that's something that if you've been a Bears fan long enough, you know that's not something that's happened consistently here at all, right? So we can't overlook the fact that we are beating teams that we are supposed to beat, because guess what? That has not happened consistently here in a while. Now, once you then start beating those teams that you should beat consistently, how many of the teams that are favored over you? How many of the other teams that maybe have been together longer than you? How many teams that are playing better than you? Then how many of those teams you could beat? So first, take care of the teams that you're supposed to beat. I'm not going to knock a team for beating who you're supposed to beat. Now, how competitive are you against those other teams? That's some of the questions that are going to be coming here for the Chicago Bears real soon with the way that their schedule shakes up, is we're going to get a really good opportunity to see how this team performs against teams that they aren't going to be favored against. And that, like I said, that's coming sooner rather than later. And that's going to be the next step of this development as well. How many of those teams now you can beat? So you're beating the teams that you're supposed to beat. Can you go 500 against the teams that are better than you? Can you do that? Can you go 45 win percentage over those teams that you're supposed to that are supposed to be better than you, right? And then you improve on the next season, and then you do the same thing. All right, let's still beat the teams that we're supposed to beat. Now let's beat a higher percentage of the teams that are supposed to be better than us. And it just keeps going and developing to when at some point you develop to a point to where you're like, well, now we're favored over more teams than we're not. Let's go out there and take care of business. That's how team development works. It's not as simple as boom, flipping a switch and you're beating and contending with all these teams. I think the fact that the Bears have kept up with the pace in the NFC North is a huge thing to look at with where this team is in their development and the fact that they've been able to do that at this part of the season. It could all come crashing down, right? I'm not going to act like that's not a chance that it can come crashing down because there's always a chance of that. You're always 2 games away from a losing streak or 2 games away from a winning streak, right? That's always how it goes. But for what it's worth, the Bears have kept up that pace. They have 5 wins, just like the 2 teams above them have in the NFC North. And we're tied with the exact same record as the Detroit Lions, the team that have run the North for the last couple of years. So, that's where things stand at with this team. Now, with the Bears schedule and how things are going to go, we're going to see how well they continue to face adversity because, like I said, those tests, they're coming. You have no bye week now. You got the New York Giants coming up this week, which I think the Bears did open up as favorites at home against the Giants. But then look, you got Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Philly, Green Bay. Your next 4 games after that. Can you go 500 or better over those games? That's what I'm looking for. If you can go 500 or better in the 4 games after this Week 10 matchup, you are in a position that let's say you win against the Giants, right? Let's say, again, take care of the teams that you're favored of. We're favored against the Giants. Let's say that we take care of that game. The Bears then move to 6-3. If you could take care of 2 of the next 4, that means that you move to 8-5 on the season. 8-5 with 4 games left at that point on the season. I tell you what, that's some serious growth where you put yourself in a position to legitimately be able to have 10 or 11 wins on the season before the season ends. So I get where the trepidation comes from, and I get where people don't have necessarily the largest faith in this Bears team, but it's just about taking care and progressing. And like I said, the Giants, don't overlook I want to be clear. In no way overlook the Giants. I don't care that they're 2-7. In no way overlook the New York Giants. Don't overlook the Giants. But outside of that, once you take care of that business against the Giants, what do you do against Minnesota? What do you do against Pittsburgh? What do you do against Philly? What do you do against Green Bay? What do you do against those teams, those next 4 matchups? Because then after that, it doesn't necessarily get easier either. Then after that, the last 4 games, you got Cleveland, Green Bay, San Francisco, and Detroit. Can you go another 400 after that? Can you finish the season at 10-7? There's a legitimate chance that this team can finish at 10-7 this year. Now, it's equally as possible that they don't go 500 over those 4 game stretches, and let's say they go 1-3. Let's definitely not go 0-4. But again, it tells you where you really stack up at. So, we'll see how that develops for this team. Overall, I'm excited about what the season's bringing. I'm excited about the tests that are ahead for this team, and we get to see where the Bears do sit at and how they take care of business. With that said, we did get an injury report yesterday as well. Number of veterans getting veteran days, I think it's what it is, but we'll go ahead and talk about it. So Josh Blackwell, Kevin Byard, TJ Edwards, Grady Jarrett, DJ Moore, and Rome Odunze, as long as Dominique Robinson, all did not participate in practice. Now, when you look at that list, there's a common thread there. There's a lot of veterans on that list. And I've said before, the first day of an injury report, you see a lot of veterans who get the scheduled day off. They get a Veterans Day. Is the way that I've always looked at it and worded it. So they get a Veterans Day. Now, let's just say most of those players are hopefully on Veterans Day and they're able to be cleared. If they're limited participants today, we'll see what happens with them on Friday. But I think a big chunk of those guys get to play. Hell, Grady Jarrett was listed as rest. So there you go there. As far as players that were limited participants in practice, Roschon Johnson, Cole Kmet, Kyle Monangai, DeAndre Swift, Luther Burden was a full go. We'll talk about that in a second. But those players were limited participants. We need Kyle Monangai. We need DeAndre Swift. We need Cole Kmet. Listen, I get it that we won a game without those guys, and I get it that we're facing off against the Giants who don't have the best record, but I want to see this offense continue to build, right? And even after Kyle Monangai's breakout game last game, now I want to see, all right, now, got that game from Kyle Monangai. We've gotten DeAndre Swift pretty good in the last few games as well. How do we find that rhythm with both those guys? That's what I want to see on Sunday against the Giants, right? And with the breakout game from Coastal Loveland, same thing. Cole Kmet, Coastal Loveland. Let's get both those guys out there, and let's see what we can do with both of them out there. that's really what I'm looking at for this team, this week. And, hopefully those guys are going to be able to be a full go by time it's ready to practice. I feel pretty good about it. But then we got Luther Burden, with this concussion. He was a full participant in practice. I think that's a big thing, especially for him being in that concussion protocol. Let's get Luther Burden back out there, add another weapon to this team for next week against the Giants. And that's just really what I want to see. Health, continue to develop, right? Continue to get on that right page because, like I said, this is a game that you can't overlook by any stretch of the imagination. But shit gets real for the next 8 weeks after this week. Just period, point blank. It gets real for the next 8 weeks after this week. Every single game. The only two easy games that we have on our schedule is the Giants and the Browns. That's it. Everything else over these next games, they're all extremely difficult. So the Bears got to lock in, and they got to get it together because, like I said, the tests are coming. They're right around the corner. And that finish of the season is a fucking gauntlet for the Chicago Bears. And let's see how we fare in it. I think we're going to walk away with the season knowing exactly how to feel about this team. So let me know what you guys think on all that down below. Make sure you guys are following us at Chi Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.